My favorite thing right now is two-factor authorization
Mm,
or authentication for your social media. In the last
mm,
2 weeks, I personally have had someone on LinkedIn, and doesn't
mm,
matter the platform, right? Could be any platform, and someone on Twitter try to take over my account. And if I had
oh,
not had two-factor authorization on the account, that person would have been in and controlling my social media.
hello and welcome to a brand new episode of Engatica's interview series. I'm your host Nimilika, and we're really glad to have you join us today. Today we have Jo Peterson, Vice President, Cloud and Security Services at Clarify 360 on the show. Welcome, Jo.
Oh, thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you so much for being here with us. The Engatica interview series is a powerhouse of insights from industry experts and influencers from around the world. A platform that provides the latest news on AI, automation, and technologies that will help grow your business. Come be a part of a community, learn, share, and grow with us. So, Jo, you work as a vice president of, cloud services, and you might be knowing a lot about digital economy. How does digital economy expose the data of all the citizens to cyber threats? That is a real fear out there.
Sure, it's a great question. So, the digital economy brings us great things, but it has a security downside, as you mentioned. So, data is the building block of the digitized economy. That's what we
Hmm.
all work up, right? Data is sort of the new gold. So when we have more opportunities for innovation, but we also have opportunities for security breaches with that data and ease of access to the cloud and other systems of record. So for example, the cloud enabled us all to work during the pandemic, and nearly half of the US workforce is working from home, according to Stanford University. As employees generate access and share more data remotely through cloud apps, the number of security blind spots sort of balloons. There's this huge economic cost to security breaches too. We can't forget that. So if we look at some numbers, the global direct monetary losses from cybercrime in 2020 were estimated to have nearly doubled to 945 billion US dollars from 522.5 billion in 2018. So
Hmm.
spending on cybersecurity has increased, but also the risk, as you'd mentioned, has doubled. And there's also systematic costs, such as supply chain impacts on upstream suppliers and downstream customers. Gartner, in fact,
Hmm.
predicts a threefold increase in the number of organizations worldwide that are going to experience attacks on their software supply chains. So there is a downside, right?
Yes, yes. And how do we let laymen or users like us let them know about these threats, and how do we teach them to be aware of such things and take care, basically?
Sure. So if you're thinking about handling cyber risk from vendors and third parties, like we were talking about earlier, there's
Hmm.
really four things that come to mind. You need to verify your third party has implemented strong third party cybersecurity
Hmm.
monitoring plans, right? You also need to confirm that your vendors have cybersecurity best practices and provide adequate training to their employees, to the end users, the contractors, their own vendors. You've got to ensure that data breach notification requirements are documented in contract language. That's super important. And
Hmm.
then you've got to set cybersecurity risk expectations and requirements for your vendors. They've got to know what you expect from them.
Yeah, yeah, that's so true. And how do we handle cyber risks from vendors and third parties? Can you tell more about that?
Well, it's some of the things I was just mentioning, right? That, you've got to know who you're dealing with and what their policies are, and you've got to make sure that it's in the contract language between you, because that's what it comes down to.
Correct, correct. And you are a passionate advocate for women in tech. And how was your experience getting into the industry?
Oh, so personally, I took a route from the military into
Oh,
tech. I was in the Air Force and I did intelligence work.
Beautiful.
So that's how I started my career in tech.
Beautiful. And what advice do you have for all the newbies coming into tech?
Um, well, so in terms of advice, I'm going to start by stating a fact. People ask me all the time, how do I get into cybersecurity? And the fact
Mm-hmm.
is that there are 3.5 million cybersecurity roles globally that went unfilled in 2021. So the good news is that there's lots of opportunity and lots of ways in the door. For instance, maybe people don't know this, but many entry-level cybersecurity jobs don't even require a bachelor's degree in cybersecurity. So a lot
Mm-hmm.
of skills that you're going to need in other technical fields, they're transferable to cybersecurity. Um, you might have worked in, another area like information systems. I always tell people, try enrolling in a cybersecurity boot camp. It's kind of a great way to get the skills that you're going to need and to see what your life might be like in that job. Um,
Yes.
and I'm also a huge proponent of certifications across the board. So I tell
Mm-hmm.
people, no matter, I keep getting certs, right? I actually, every year in January, I come up with a list of certs that I personally want to get because I think it's a good idea for everyone to up level and upskill. And
Yes.
I think that that shows that you take an interest in learning to your employer, and your employer might take a chance on you and put you in, an adjacent field to,
Mm.
right? So you can get a little experience doing cyber work and see if you like it.
I just loved what you said just now. Being consistent with your performance, being a consistent learner. That's the biggest takeaway. And all you newbies who are watching this, please take this, note this down. Yeah, I have so many friends who are just getting out of college and they want to go into tech. And they might not have a tech degree, but they might want to go into a tech corporate world.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, this will help them out, certifications and constant learning. And if I may digress a little bit, can you tell me your experience in the Air Force?
Oh, so I was in the intelligence field, and I got a chance. It was such a great experience. I got a chance to travel internationally, and I
Hmm.
actually lived in Japan for a couple of years, which was
Wow.
super cool to do, getting to learn a new culture. So it was a great experience.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. Coming back to cybersecurity, you're the expert. So, what is the most common mistake people make while implementing a cybersecurity strategy?
Well, so I'd say this, in the enterprise space, I think for the most part, organizations have it down. Lots of skilled people out there doing good work. And what I mean by
Hmm.
that is they understand frameworks and they understand guidelines and they use those as guides. Where I think over the last couple years that organizations have gotten into a little bit of trouble depending upon how big they were, how big their benches were, level of skill, is the proliferation of cloud technologies. If you think about it, cloud changed the way we procured infrastructure. We didn't buy hardware
Hmm.
anymore, right?
Yes.
And so securing that environment was a new thing for some folks. And
Hmm.
it became even more complicated because cloud is ubiquitous and so it's easily procured. So lots of business units are buying cloud, and maybe the IT teams weren't even aware of that. So how could they secure what they weren't aware of? To add
Hmm.
another level of complexity, we've got hybrid environments where you're having to secure things that were on premises and things that
Hmm.
were in the cloud as well. And we've got multi-cloud. So it's a lot of, to say that the cloud providers take care of the security, well, that's mostly true, but you have to really understand the shared responsibility model. And the shared responsibility model changes from a security perspective depending on the vendor and depending on the product procured. So it's a
Hmm.
lot to know and understand. I think that's where things maybe have gotten sideways a little bit in the last couple of years.
Okay. Okay. And what is the biggest cybersecurity threat right now that people should be aware of?
So if you're looking through the enterprise lens, IEEE recently polled 350 CTOs and
Hmm.
CIOs and IT directors, and 51% of respondents mentioned cloud vulnerability as a top concern. And that's
Okay.
up 35% from 2022. So sort of that cloud security thing that we were talking about.
Mm.
43% said data center vulnerability. And
Mhm.
then other things cited were ransomware, um, lack of investment in security solutions, supply chain vulnerabilities, which we touched on earlier, phishing. Um, I'm, in no way diminishing the daunting task of safely securing an environment against all these things, but it's important to remember that that most data breaches are caused by human error, by negligence, lack of
Yes.
awareness,
Yes.
simply clicking the wrong link, right? You could be
Mm.
doing that. So it's common for employees to increase their digital footprint without being aware of the risks involved. And it comes back to the human element. Employee training and awareness is critical. They're going to help solve some of that misconfiguration problem. They're going to help solve some of those errors.
Yes. And usually when I think about cybersecurity, the first domain that comes to my mind is IoT. For example, smart homes, because smart homes have so much, IoT going on, and there's so much computerization, automation. One small mistake or one small cyber threat might, bring down the whole system. And because it's home, it has, family, children, pets. So, can you throw some light on how important cybersecurity is in our daily lives?
Yeah, you bring up really, really good points. The fact is that remote work is here to stay, right? The
Hmm.
pandemic showed us that we all could be super productive working from home.
Yes.
But the long pole in that tent is the way we connect to our corporate networks
Hmm.
and the risk that that brings, right? So we have to be really diligent. We have to take some of that burden on ourselves as end users and help the IT guys out,
True.
by doing things that are going to help with cyber hygiene. That means not using the same password for everything, right?
Hmm.
That means changing your password up. You brought up a really good point about IoT. That's a technique called microsegmentation. That means taking your home connectivity off of your network connectivity to your office, right? Separating those things out so that one doesn't touch the other, right?
Yes.
That's super important. What are the things? Maybe not using your kid's unsecured computer to connect to your work. Have a
Hmm.
designated device that you're going to use for work that has been checked for ransomware. Has been patched. Has been cleaned up. It's not going to be a problem, right? Those are the things that we can do to help the IT guys and gals out to stay
Yes.
more secure, right? And then not conversely, let anything into our network at home.
Yes. Yes. And what you said is also true. The end users have to be digitally literate, basically. We can't say that, oh, the system is all set and now I'll just blindly trust it and go ahead and use it however I want to. Right? Yeah. That is a good takeaway too. And before we end our conversation, do you have any sound bites to share with our audience?
Oh, okay. So thank you for asking. My favorite thing right now is two-factor authorization
Hmm.
or authentication for your social media. In the last
Hmm.
2 weeks, I personally have had someone on LinkedIn, and doesn't
Hmm.
matter the platform, right? Could be any platform, and someone on Twitter try to take over my account. And if I had
Oh,
not had two-factor authorization on the account, that person would have been in and controlling my social media.
oh
So
God.
yeah, right. So I tell everybody, if you're not familiar with it, get familiar with it, enable two-factor authentication on your
Hmm.
personal social media because you don't want someone taking your brand or your identity.
True. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your insights with us, Joe. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, it was so much fun talking to you. For more content, subscribe to Engati and tap the bell icon to get access to exclusive content from thought leaders from around the globe. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you with a new expert soon.